Welcome, I'm Noxious Wrath, and I'm going to blast through a whole ton of components and parts as fast as I can. We're going to be making a bunch of augmenters, a bunch of mechanized chinchampas, equipment siphons, empty divine charges, junk refiners, and we may end up doing augmentation dissolvers, but probably not because that's a lot of time that I just mentioned there. Alright, so we're going to get right to it and we're going to start making some stuff. This is going to be kind of cool because you're going to get a lot of experience really fast, especially with what I'm going to start off with. Whoops, not material crates. Miscellaneous supports. No, is it not? Oh yeah, it's combat. Mechanized chinchampas. We're going to make a whole ton of them. And look at all this experience I'm going to be not getting because 200 million experience. Already 23,003 of them. This is crazy. I'm going to make a whole mess of them. They're 1,500 living components. And I got almost 16,000 plated parts. Let's see. I think it uses connector parts as well. I got plenty of those. I got plenty of everything. I got plenty of tensile parts for the augmenters. I've got a lot of these. I'm not going to be making quite 1,000. I'm going to be making like 824, something like that. I'm going to use like 187,000 incandescents, so a little bit more than I need right there. And I'm going to be making a decent chunk of siphons because it takes 5 precious and 5 dexterous for each one of those. So, you know, 20 of them goes into 100, 200 into 1,000. So I'm going to be making like a little over 600 of them, something like that. My math could be off. Sometimes I'm decent with math, other times I'm not. I'm also going to be using a lot of the simple parts with that. It takes 50 simple parts for each siphon, and I'm going to use the rest of those on the empty divine charges. I like those because you don't have to deal with any buy limits with incandescent energies if you're buying them, and it's just easier to make, and they only take 20 simple parts each, so you're going to be getting quite a bit of them. I'm only going to be taking X amount from, you know, like I said, it's not a lot of equipment siphons. It's a pretty good chunk, you know, if you've ever tried to use this to make money and, you know, you're starting out from the beginning. So, you know what that's like. That's a lot of them. This is a lot. That's a pretty good chunk. This is quite a bit of equipment, or augmenters. And it's going to turn into a decent little chunk of change. I'm only 3.464 billion GP worth. It's gone down quite a bit as I bought some stuff to fill this out so I could go off and do this, but we're gonna make a whole bunch of stuff. Now see, when I'm getting my stuff from my mechanized chinchampas, first and foremost, I've got my machines back here doing a lot of logs. Typically they've always got some logs in them, so I'm getting simple parts like there's no tomorrow, and living components like there's no tomorrow. It's really good to always have them running with those. I like to have my machines using, or rather breaking down, things that there's just too many for me to ever want to do by hand. So logs, going for my simple parts, it's definitely something I never want to do by hand. I'll do a lot of my enhancing or my precious, my enhancing and my precious components I'll do by hand. That'll be a lot of my jewelry and such as that. That'll be the Slayer rings when I decide that I'm going to do a bunch of Slayer rings for this. I don't do those too horribly often anymore because the volume at which I make stuff, I can turn a pretty decent profit without spending a bunch of time collecting up those gems with that rate limiter of, I mean, it's ultimately like 500 something a day. And then of course making them into rings using crafting. I prefer to avoid that. But I'm gonna be having these things break down. A lot of times I use them for my plated parts. See, the plated parts for the mechanized chinchampas are going to be your hard thing to get a hold of. That's going to be your expensive thing to get a hold of. Because the living components are paid for by the simple parts that they give. but the plated parts. I find that steel plated salvage, you're gonna find one of them that'll end up selling pretty well, um, around the Grand Exchange mid, and pretty consistently in large numbers. There's a couple of things, when it comes to the base parts, you can usually find mithril or adamant, but it's not really the way that you really want to go. You don't really want to buy the base parts if you can avoid it. And if you're, and we'll get into the base parts later, but so your plated parts are going to be the hard thing to get a hold of, and you're gonna use the steel plated salvage. It works pretty well. It works pretty well. And then of course you're gonna get your connector parts through your jewelry that you're gonna be breaking down for your precious and your enhancing. Those two things are gonna be giving you primarily your connector parts, and they're going to give you your delicate parts too, but you're going to use your delicate parts in the augmenter, I believe, if I remember correctly. Then you're also going to get smooth parts that doesn't really have a home. Spiritual parts don't really have a home. Staff parts don't really have a home, at least in large numbers. We're going to use a pretty good chunk of flexible parts, but that's going to come from your bows. You'll be disassembling bows and such as that for dexterous and tensile parts, and ultimately those flexible. But yes, you can see we're making pretty good distance through here. I did probably mess up my my numbers on that, so I'm not going to be making as many as I thought. But you know, I was excited about doing this, and I kind of may have jumped the gun a little bit, but we're still going to make a ton of stuff here really, really fast. And mind you, all of this can be a background type thing for you. You could use these machines to literally break apart everything that you need for this. There's even theoretically a happy medium for what you can have all four of these running. I've got 4. Honestly don't know if there's a new better generator, but if there is, that means I could have 5, and that just means it gets even better. But so this is a completely AFK type way that you can do these things. And you can see I've already made a ton of mechanized chinchappas just chilling here. So if you only had, if you're only trying to make mechanized chinchappas and you had, well, I guess you're gonna still end up with a bunch of other stuff anyways, but you've got your simple parts going. You take all of those simple parts and you turn them into, let's just say, empty divine charges. That's going to pay for a bunch of jewelry. You break down that jewelry, you get a bunch of precious components, you get the connector parts that you need for those mechanized chinchappas, and then you find yourself with a bunch of precious, and you might as well get the dexterous. So whatever bladed salvage you get will give you dexterous too, but not in a great number of them. So even though it does take care of the dexterous needs if you continually get and use base parts, but you'll be wanting tensile parts and flexible parts as well. So you want to use a lot of magic short bows. You can get a lot of magic short bows, and you can get a lot of dexterous out of those, a lot of tensile, and a lot of flexible. Like I said, those are going to be involved in the augmenter, which is going to use the enhancing and the powerful. So you see how this is one of those use every piece. I mean, you can't, because like I said, it doesn't have a home, doesn't really have a home, not in large numbers, doesn't have a home. So there's a lot of that stuff. This doesn't really have a home. That does, but it's not all that good. It wastes other parts that I would rather use on other items. So it doesn't really have a home. There's a decent chunk here, but there's a good chunk of stuff here that does have a home, and you end up with parts of other items you could make by just making some, and it's just a no-brainer. You should definitely go off and make everything you can. and it's really not that difficult to find out what it is. Like I said, it's the logs. You're going to be doing a lot of logs. The steel plated salvage is a really good one. You're going to be doing jewelry as cheap as you can find it. You're going to be doing the magic short bows because you need the dexterous, tensile, and flexible. And any bladed salvage you can come across. You can go ahead and put in a buy order right now for silver sickles. They're not as good as they used to be because they're quite a bit more expensive, but they're still one of the cheapest ways you can possibly get base parts. And the problem is that there's a 100 buy limit. So every 4 hours you're limited to 100. So just put one in there, let it keep going, let it keep going, let it keep going, and eventually, you know, you're gonna have yourself a chunk of them. It's more AFK stuff like these machines. You could just have a buy order in for a ton of silver sickles, and every so often you're gonna have a huge chunk of them. So then we've got the enhancing and the powerful components too, which are gonna come into all of the augmenters. The enhancing components are gonna come with the precious components pretty quick. You can get them from potions as well, but potions aren't quite as good because, yeah, potions are going to give you crafted parts. They're not going to give you precious. So if you use jewelry to get both of these, you're going to be taking care of quite a few points of interest. There we go. The delicate, the precious, and the enhancing. So you definitely want to do that instead of the potions, but you can get enhancing from potions as well. Now, powerful components are going to come from your battle staves, your pouches. In fact, where I usually get mine is from pouches. Now, pouches are definitely something that I don't want to disassemble because I'm going at the cheapest pouches that I can find, and I don't want to disassemble 45,000 of them. But I will put 45,000 of them into the disassemblers. And what's beautiful about these, and one of the reasons why I'm not worried about crafted parts coming from potions and not getting them from jewelry, but disassembling the jewelry anyways, is because I'm going to get a ton of them from the pouches. And that's relevant because junk refiners are valuable. They're fairly fast to make, and this being something that you end up with anyways, because the pouches are a really good way to get the powerful components. It's a really good way to go about it. I also use a lot of battle staves. Battle staves have become extremely cost effective, and mind you, all of these items, they fluctuate. You know, sometimes you can get them for better prices than others, and you should always go for the lowest price, and always keep your eyes open for something better, either a better priced something or an activity that ends up netting you a lot more than you may have expected. It can be worth it. For instance, there's all these monsters now that are dropping salvage, and that's pretty epic. But either way, I get myself confused as I come up to a little bit of a transition here. So we're going to go from making mechanized chinchampas to we're going to make some equipment siphons. Equipment siphons are, you know, not as much experience, but they're worth pretty good cash. Now, each one of these is worth almost 10,000. Okay, well, the GE mid is 10,000 a piece, and we just made 12,000. That's 550. So that's a decent little chunk. I was off on my math a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. So, so I know that guy in real life, Mytheon. He's really the noob. He joined years and years after me, and he kind of sucks at this game. But he's a pretty cool guy. If you end up seeing him on, you should definitely friend him up because he's pretty cool. But I'm not gonna talk to him at the moment because I'm dealing with all of this right here. So, like I said, we're taking 5 of the precious and 5 of the dexterous and 50 from the simple parts to make each one of these equipment siphons. And each one of these equipment siphons is worth 120,000 apiece. I've already made 36 of them since we've been sitting here in you know, here in 40 seconds I'll make 20 more. 36 seconds I'll make 20 more. So I'm just trying to remember how much time that it was initially. I mean, I don't really pay attention to much of this. I AFK a lot of stuff. The disassembly that I do, I will get it to where my mouse doesn't move, and I will just click, click, like this. I'll click, and then click, 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 click. So that's how I do a lot of my disassembly while we're watching shows and such as that. Just clicking, clicking. I'm gonna keep making these equipment siphons as fast as we can make them here. And after that, we've got, I'm going to make the augmenters in this video. I don't know how many of the junk refiners I'm going to make, because I can make 50,000 crafted parts will get you 1,000 junk refiners. And you do actually have to run to the bank and such. You got to pull out the rune bars. But you take a rune bar, you combine it with 50 of things that you got while looking for something else, and you turn it into like 25,000. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. There's not really much better profit rates in this game than are capable in disassembly, in invention. Some really amazing skill. I can't wait to really get into the impact of the ancient materials. The ancient materials, it's not, I'm not so interested in what these do, but the fact that we have tradable materials, that's interesting, because that means that the groundwork is there to make these all tradable, and these all tradable, and these all tradable. That would be pretty awesome. I stand to make quite a bit if that happens. I've also got a bunch of junk. Make junk tradable. That would be great. So, interested. Also interested in this entire skill, primarily because it goes to 150. And we've only got support to 120. And as little as that says in and of itself, realize that the essence of finality is under 120. So we've got stuff that's going to be from the 120 to the 150. That's more powerful, more utilitarian than essence of finality. Since all of the alchemical hydric stuff, that's insane. That is rightly insane. I cannot wait to see what actually happens. And the fact that it ties into every other skill in its own little way and in their own little ways means that the 120 to 150 for invention means so much across the entire scope of everything. And make the parts and components tradable. Wow, that would be fantastic. Yeah, I've got a lot of precise components. I don't really ever have a problem finding my perks relevant to that one. Yeah, my precise, my P whatever, E whatever. Yeah, I can't do it right now. But yeah, Brooch of the Gods is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. It has definitely given me some of this. That's one reason I have 15 armadillo components just chilling here, is because of the Brooch of the Gods. It is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. It is a little bit, more underwhelming than the Grace of the Elves, but it does hit everything non-combat. This only gatherer skills, right? No, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, sure, why not? Yep, gathering skills. This one hits everything, but this one can hit the rare drop table, is the rare drop table, and this isn't. But these components are pretty special, especially when you really don't want to be breaking down a noxious weapon to get noxious components. Brooch of the Gods will get it for you. There's a perk that you can get too that will randomly give you components. And that one's really worth it. Oops, yep, let's not. Okay. That one's really worth it as well. In fact, I got my first biting 3 because of it. That was the perk that does that. The scavenging perk? No, I'm not sure. Just no, there is a perk that does that. That goes and gets you components, and then go find it. So we're making some pretty good speed through here. You know, that was like 3,700. Definitely getting there. Or we have 200. Yep. So made a whole mess of those. Gonna make that, you know, like 700 or so. Seven something. It's gonna be great. So, like I've been saying, you need to keep your eyes open for, as you start figuring this out, because everybody starts with the simple parts, making the divine charges, and then they find the equipment siphons. Okay, this is leaving you with a bunch of stuff that you're not using, because if you're just doing those, you're going to be being left with enhancing components, connector parts, delicate parts, and living components. Okay, that's a huge chunk of the mechanized chinchompas, because the other part, as long as you've been using jewelry for the equipment siphons, you're going to have the connector parts. All you're going to need is the plated parts, and that's not hard. They even come fast. I don't mind breaking them down by hand, because the parts come fast. And so you find yourself with a bunch of pieces of the others, and it's like, right, so just adding one, and I can all of a sudden make a bunch of mechanized chinchompas for effectively the price of the plated parts, because you have already justified getting this stuff and not using it by breaking down jewelry to make your equipment siphons and not doing anything else. You have justified those connector parts as worthless, okay, or rather of no value or no cost to you to use. So all you have to do is add that, and then do the math. You need 65 of the plated parts. Figure out what you end up paying for set amount of plated parts. Realize that each 65 of those is worth 50 of these, and they're 10,000 a piece. Okay, so that's some serious cash right there. Okay, just in case you're not quite aware, they're probably gonna stop me. Yeah, it stops the thing. Okay, that's 127 million right there. Okay, so we're talking about some real cash. Each one of these plated parts can be a lot more expensive than you're going to be paying for it for you to make profit off of this, and it's just because you had living components and you had connector parts. And then you do the same thing when it comes to the fact that you had went for your dexterous parts, dexterous components, and you used magic short bows for them. Those magic short bows left you with a ton of tensile parts, a ton of flexible parts, on top of all of the dexterous parts that you used, quantifying these as no cost to you to use. So you've got a bunch of enhancing because of these precious. All you need to do is get powerful components, stay on top of the base parts. You can even go to the Varrock sword shop and buy all of his swords every day and disassemble them. It's a really good method. It's really cheap. And even, you don't have to go and get 61,000 base parts at a time. But if you stay on top of that, stay on top of the collecting the base parts, and you take all of these cheap pouches that you can get, especially during DXP weekend and such, and then dump them into the disassemblers, you're not only going to be finishing up the requirements for all of that, besides the incandescent energy that you gotta buy, which yes, it is kind of expensive, but it's not like it used to be anyways. Then you're left with all of these crafted parts, and you've just made a bunch of augmenters. So this is now complete and total profit on top of that, because that has now been determined no cost to you. So add in the rune bars, and then you've got, what's 1,000 times 25,000? 25 million? Another 25 million there? Whoops. Okay. And that's not even counting the cover parts that came from you getting the plated parts. Because them, with a couple of other little things that you're going to have plenty of, and empty vials, will make augmentation dissolvers. You can use your cover parts for other things. Oops, for a second I thought that I was already ready for another go at it, but it doesn't matter. There are other things you can use the cover parts for, but they all conflict with things. The augmentation dissolvers, however, it works. It works. Doing this, you're gonna have plenty of junk, I promise. Okay, this is effectively how I've done this the entire time in one way or another. I just described to you my entire experience with it. I started making, well, there wasn't empty chargers when I started. You had to get the incandescent energy. So I would have to have a buy order for that, and I had a rate limiter there. But I wasn't making them in the number that I am now. So, and I didn't go on to mechanized chinchompas first, of course. I went to the equipment siphons, what we're doing right here. And then I ended up realizing that. I was like, oh, how do I do this? Now, I fought for a long time to find plated parts. My first real good push came because I was making the alchemical onyxes, and for quite a while, because I was buying all the fortune I could and just flipping everything as fast as I could, the heraldic armor was doing really well. And when the heraldic armor is doing really well, you're going to get a lot of plated parts, because every time you disassemble that for that fortune component, you're getting a bunch of plated parts, and it was really good for plated parts. So if you're doing that, if you can get a hold of enough of those, that definitely helps, but you can't count on that. And I struggled for quite a while until I ended up finding the medium bladed salvage was excuse me, was typically going to be selling for an acceptable GE mid variant, and that was eye-opening. And it's been quite a consistent grind now. Like I said, I've always got logs in my disassemblers, so I'm always getting this. Then I can even stop these and throw a ton of medium bladed salvage in it, because you can buy a ton at a time. The buy limit on it is fantastic. I can just fill them all. I mean, I don't think I can actually fill them all, but I can put a huge chunk in them. And be ready to make a whole mess of mechanized chinchompas a week later. So, not even a week later. Let's see what we get here. So, subtle components. Subtle components are good. Subtle components are going to go into... I'm drawing a blank right now. What I'm thinking of right now is the ethereal components. Ethereal components are really good. That's where you're going to get your equipment separators. That's your rate limiter for your equipment separators. You can get everything else fast enough, except for that. I've got a lot of it because of Fruit to the Gods, primarily. And then every once in a while I end up disassembling some stuff that'll give me some. Oh, let's see. Some of these things, like, there's the subtle components. Oh, yeah, the mobile. There's a crystal shield. Mobile and looting. Mobile and looting maybe is, wow, I always remember. That's still pretty good. Those are really good perks. Crystal shield is a good perk. Oh, here we go. Got some more. So, the refined components, you know, obviously they go for your alchemical onyxes and hydrixes, but they're also really good to make bank standers. Bank standers are fantastic and will give you a lot of components too, because they give X amount of parts, X amount of components, and have a whatever % chance of giving you a rare component. And they fill up while you're in or around a bank, and then they explode when they're full, giving you all of this stuff. You get those from refined components and adamant bars, and they are absolutely fantastic. I've used at least 500 of them. I mean, that's probably not anywhere near what I've used, but I'm prone to exaggeration, and I'm trying not to, but they are fantastic. I will go through the effort of making junk refiners, refining junk, and making bank standards to deal with a long disassembly push that I do, just to get that bit extra, because it's so nice to see 25 base parts come up. That's so nice, so nice. And you get like 8 different items, 8 different parts, and you get 8 or 25 of each. So you could have 2 base parts show up there and get 25 on each of them. That's 50 base parts. And if you've done anything with invention already and had to go find base parts, you already know how expensive base parts are. Well, when you're looking for tens upon tens of thousands of them, it becomes even worse. So we are getting close now. We've only got 1,000, so there's another 200 we can make. So yeah, about 741 of them. Alright. That's still pretty cool. That's still pretty cool. I've got like 100 and something sitting in the bank, so I'll probably just sell them with it, because I do have some plans to do after this. It's one reason why I kind of wanted to get this thing done. So we're with that 200 of them. I'm not quite sure how many. My math is failing me right now, but that's gonna leave me with quite a few simple parts for the empty divine charges, which are worth, like, remember correctly, like 20,000 a piece, if I remember correctly. Either way it goes, I'm gonna be making quite a few of them, because they only cost 20 simple parts each. So that means there's 5 in every 100. So that means 50. There's 50 in every 1,000. So if I've got 60,000, 60 times 50 is whatever that is. 60 times 50, 30,000? Something like that? Maybe? 3,000? Every 2,000? Every 20,000 is 1,000. Yep, it's gonna be 3,000. 60, yep, it's gonna be 3,000 empty divine charges can be made with this. So we might not go through all of those either, but I'll still end up making some. And just so you can see, I mean, we're 33 minutes into this, and I've already put together a whole mess of stuff. Those mechanized chinchompas, it does take quite a while because you don't get the living components very often. But if you put them in the machines, you seem to yourself to get them a lot faster when you're not sitting there. You know, the whole watched pot never boils, the watched broken thing never yields living components. But these things will give them to you in chunks. So you see like 40 of them, 30, 38. And it'll be great on top of all the simple parts that you get out of it. It's going to feel great. Getting really close to being done on this one. Just going to be one more, I think. Maybe 2. Then we're going to make a bunch of augmenters. And that's guaranteed to be on this. Don't know how much of the empty divine charges or junk refiners I'm going to make and actually record, but you can see there's a huge chunk there, so that would be quite a bit. Another 25 million, a little bit more than 25 million there, and if those are 20,000, that'd be like another 60 million in divine charges. So that's going to be a decent little chunk of change to get moving on to what I need to get done. trying to get myself some Crypt Bloom armor. That's my next step. And I'd like to get some steps on it. Yeah, so definitely 2 more. Okay, so this one and part of another. But yeah, this next DXP weekend, I'm actually going to be entering onto a high score list. On runeclan.com, there is a list of the top 100 players and their 24-hour record days. To get onto the list, I think it's like 150 or 160 million to get onto the list. Well, I'm going to get about 200 million in a 24-hour period. I got a lot of stuff saved up for it, including, yes, I know you don't get to double the experience from artifacts that you restore, but they're still really fast experience. So I've got them saved. I've got almost 200 Red Rum Relic sets. Red Rum Relic 3 sets. So I'm sitting on like 50 million worth of experience in archaeology. And I am set up to make a ton of pouches, water geyser, whatever, geyser titans, and like 44,000 of them with the portable bank deposit boxes. And then I've got a little bit more scheduled. I've got a ton of bonus experience. I've got almost 20 million right now in summoning. I plan on having a little bit more. I'm going to do some herb lore at the tail end of it just to get to where I want, because I've got 12 million experience, bonus experience in that. I've also got almost 900 pulse cores. I'm going to have summoning focuses the whole way. I have most of them already. I've got pretty much all the blue charms I need, / onyxes, / modified botanist summoning headdress. And we are approaching the end of the equipment siphons. And getting to where I think that you should be able to understand a little bit about the dynamic nature of this skill and the open design space that exists in it. So now we gonna make us some. They're only worth 320,000 a piece now, but we gonna make them fast, and we gonna make like 800 of them. Yeah, we're gonna make like 800 augmenters. This is fun. So all right, this is an extremely wide open design space skill. They can literally do anything, because it doesn't matter what Slayer is or what thieving gets in later dates. It's gonna be very thieving oriented. You know, even when they have skills that need another skill, it still feels very contrived. Like, okay, you had to draw a line in between those two. Okay, whatever. Well, Invention can do anything to anything. It can literally do anything to anything. They could have anything happen. They can create any item. They can create any perk, any mechanism, any invention they could possibly want to come up with. They could come up with a new fast travel. Okay, so that means that we're talking about lodestone type stuff. So we're also talking about the only 150 level skill. When they go from 120 to 150, I think that's going to be an amazing milestone. Amazing milestone for this game, because it's going to serve a purpose. It already does. This skill already serves a purpose. There needed to be a sink for items, because the economy wasn't gonna last if none of these items ever actually broke. You know, nothing. They just were in the game forever. You know, we needed to have something, and It needed to be as prolific as this has turned out to be, where so much stuff is disassembled. Even with the auto disassembler, you know, that was such a great addition to the game. The auto disassembler was great. And salvage is really good too. I like that it takes the place of actual items and gives you something that has to be disassembled for its general purpose. So that's so much better than dropping a bunch of something that we're going to try and make. I don't want a bunch of daggers getting dropped when I'd like to be able to make money with daggers while training my smithing. So that was a great addition. I was kind of on the fence about it at the beginning, but I really turned around to it. It was definitely worth the time that they had spent on it. And if you haven't noticed already, I absolutely love this skill. This skill is probably my favorite out of all of them, followed by archaeology, but I kind of like archaeology in real life, so I kind of think that might project some of my like onto it, because it's really kind of cancer. But you see, I got 142, almost 143 million. I'm sitting on the 50 million I'm going to use on the next DXP weekend, so I've got almost 200 million experience in it. I will keep doing it because I want to be disassembling and using. I want to be able to see if I can't make enough money disassembling artifacts. Very curious. Let's see. Slayer is also one of my favorites. At 120 with 141 million experience, I love Slayer so much. I have, however, you see, I was a meager like 87 Slayer when the HSR got released, the Haslemere Signet Ring. Well, since then, I have gone from like 87 Slayer to 120 with 141 million XP. I have tons of boss kills. I have done so much in this game, and I haven't even seen the Blurberry special. Not even a failed drop. I've gotten a couple of Vecna's skulls, which, from what I understand, is from the same drop table, but ultimately is a fail for the HSR when what you want is the HSR. So coming up on 100 augmenters. Mind you, 100 augmenters is 30 million? No, 3. No, it is. It's 30 million because 10. Yeah. It is. That's 30 million. We've already done what was like 127 million. That's like 30 million. I'm not quite sure what all that is, but we'll find out here in a little bit. I'm gonna let it keep on trucking. And we'll be done with it here in not too horribly long. Probably about 20 minutes. Not sure. I am definitely in awe as to what this could really mean. All of this could really mean. I'm excited. I'm excited what archaeology could bring to the game, because that also opens up a bunch of design space. Just these 3 skills right here, divination, invention, and archaeology, all have a lot of design space that's open. Mind you, summoning, a lot of the design space from the 99 to 120 will be closed sooner rather than later. One of the mods had said exactly that summoning will get a 120 update sooner rather than later. And of course, we've already got some really cool 120 updates. I'm looking forward to the 120 thieving update. That'll be great. I think it's still going to be quite a while before we get any of the combats up to 120. But I'm excited. Ready in the skills that I like. So we'll see how it all goes. But for the time being, let's see, plant cures. Plant cures don't even waste your time on. They don't tend to sell, and they just take too long for what they're worth, and they take some parts out of other items' mouths. So we are getting along there. We got 140 right now. And I'm going to, let's see. Well, what I'd like to do is, ultimately, I want to start a clan. You see, I tried probably 4 or 5 years ago, but there was a couple things wrong. Number one, I had no idea what I was doing. Number two, I wasn't maxed. In fact, I was far from it. There was a couple of skills that I had swore off and was never going to do. Well, that's not the case anymore. I've got some desires to ultimately play this game a little bit different, because I see this big huge divide between players. We've got these clans that it's just a loosely knit group of people kind of trying to pretend to play together, and they're all doing their own things, their own individual things. Yeah, there's a little bit of boss killing here and there between a couple of friends. Hey man, let's go duo this. Alright, let's go. We've got some much larger bosses now, but we also don't have any clans that just specifically do it. You know, like, okay, next AOD, no clan, the whole clan, or rather do they ever fill the lobby with their clan? No one ever does that. Not saying I'm ready for that, but I wonder, for instance, so any boss is worth X amount if you can kill it in Y time. Okay, well, what happens to X when you divide Y by like 50? How much theoretically could we get? Because I get it. Vindicta and Gorvek, it's not a real great mass potential, but you know what it is? It's a great way to go and try and prove concept. You can now take 50 people in there. If you take 50 people in there, you're literally gonna kill Gorvek before she gets to take off. So you're gonna almost instantly end phase 1. Okay, probably no smoke at all. Yeah, definitely no smoke at all. And then before she can even attack 3 times, she's dead. So what, 10-15 second kill? What would that be if we could get an hour of 10 or 15 second kills, where it's almost as long for it to spawn as it is to die? That's a lot of kills. That's a lot of potential. That's a lot of getting to roll that rare drop table die. I mean, there's gotta be some places where a bunch of players can abuse the mechanics of the game to increase drop chances through attempts, through, you know, the actual rolling of the die. But how many times can we get to roll it? How many times can, when players are leveling, they all do it themselves. It's all doing the most efficient thing because that's just how it's done. What if there was a clan that had some kind of a forum so that you could know what people are actually planning on doing, so that it's like, oh, well, you know, this person happens to be going and making a ton of now tradable extreme range potions. Okay, cool. How about this guy? I'll buy him off of you, and then I'll make mine. that'll also make it to where people can make more off-the-wall type items. Like, how many times have you had a bunch of something that you can't make because you can't guarantee to sell it? Well, people can have a list of what you're going to be doing. Doesn't have to go out very long, but I get lost in details that don't exist yet. But the point is that this game can be played on a much different level. One where we're really cooperating. Really, if it is against the rules of the game to bypass the buy limit and to try and affect the price on the GE. But what if an entire clan were to say, alright, we are all going to farm a specific thing as much as we can this month. Do your other things, do whatever, but we don't want you to cap. We want you to go and earn a specific item. And then we start playing some games with the Grand Exchange and see what happens. It's not illegal for all of us to pool our resources together and see what happens when you dump 10 million Earth runes onto the Grand Exchange. I've already got my ideas of what happens. I would love to test it out. And Earth runes, I say Earth runes because it's fairly cheap and pretty easy to test out. But basically, on RuneScape site itself, it'll give you the volumes traded on items, and I think that there's a lot of power in knowing the volume of it. And if you were to drop that much onto the market, you're going to affect the price. And with how the Grand Exchange works in relation to when a buy order or a sell order was placed, and who gets the high, who gets the deal, and who gets to make the sale, there are very specific rules to this, and they can be leveraged to get some stuff done that hasn't been done in this game before. And I'd love to be a part of that, and I'd love to run the clan that does it, because I like grandiose things. I may not be able to pull them off in the style in which I always want, but oh, I do love grandiose things. So here we are approaching 300 augmenters, getting it. Definitely getting it. Whoops, clicked it just a hair bit too early. Whatevs. I'm a little bit OCD. A lot of times I will just go ahead and fix that and make it like quick, do it again before it can do a second one. But I really don't feel like showing y'all the OCD side of me. But I'm gonna tell you about it, I guess. I can never let myself get away with anything. I can never let myself get away with anything. See those flexible parts and those tensile parts going away. It's quite a bit to do here. This took quite a long time to get up. If you're gonna do it completely AFK and using the auto disassemblers pretty much exclusively to do this, this would take a tremendously long time to get all this together. It will take a long time to get it all together no matter how you do it, but it would seem almost forever, like almost literally forever. So yeah, that's gonna be a little under 3,000 empty divine charges, because it is 1,000 divine charges for every 2,000, or for every 20,000 simple parts. So that's almost 3,000 empty divine charges. That's pretty cool. So it'd be around 50 million something. plus the 25 there. So that's basically 200 million, including the mechanized Chinchampas. Of course, the equipment siphons are 121,000 apiece. That means 12 million for every 7. So that's 84 million. About 84 million there. I mean, we'll look at it all later. I just don't want to break that off, and don't care to pull it up until those are all there. Just seems like a good idea. Kind of save a little bit of suspense, if you will. Even though I've added up a huge chunk of it, you could just add up the other. You could just figure it out, but I haven't made them all yet, so you can't quite do it. You could do the math here. Figure out which one is closer to which one's going to run out first, and yeah, because you use 8 of those and 7 of those each one. You use 8 and 7. And I'm probably going to get OCD on this. Watch when I get OCD on this. There we go. We're fixed now. I went OCD on it. But we're going to cross the halfway point with this one. Not the halfway of the video. Halfway of the augmenters. Still under an hour. But we're getting there. Almost done with this. Like I said, I'm making like 820 of them. So, not going to be much longer. Still going to be a little bit. Because that has been about 12 minutes for that. So, at least another 15. But that's not bad. It's not bad at all. An hour, ultimately, like, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to do everything that I've done here, plus finishing this off. And that's, that is not including doing the simple parts and doing the crafted parts for the junk refiner and the divine charges. And they do take a little while. It does take a minute to make 3,000 divine charges. It does take a minute to make 1,000 junk refiners. But it takes 20 minutes, maybe 30, 35. Okay, so 20 minutes for 25,000, and 35 minutes for 60, or 25 million, and 35 minutes for 60 million, 50 million. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's perfectly fine. Especially when you had it doing that while you were doing other things, including not playing the game at all. Just getting you stuff that, yeah. So it would take you about an hour to do 100,000 simple parts, which would be 5,000, which would be 100 million. That's about 100 million in divine charges. And you could do that in about an hour. You could have them collected for you while you're doing other stuff, including not playing, and then spend an hour whenever it gets full to make yourself 100 million. And yes, the logs do cost money, but they do not cost 100 million. And like I said, it sets you up for these. It's going to give you a ton of living components, and it's going to start you off on this little thing. You're going to go and you're going to make all of this stuff. You're going to figure out that you're going to have logs in this all the time, and then when you finally get to where you want to do something else, you're going to put X amount of jewelry in this one, pouches in this one, your magic bows in this one, and your plated salvage in this one. And that's how you're going to do it. That's how you're going to do 420. That's 420 of them. So, we are over halfway. What did that one give me? Powerful components. Whoops. May be able to do one more, because if that was going to be the one that ran out, and it was going to be 4 short, well, I get one more out of it. Sweet. Yeah, see, there's about halfway on the incandescent energies, and I had a little bit more than I needed. Of course, I'm a little bit over halfway, because that would be 860 for halfway right here. 860 is double that. But there's definitely a lot of thought to be put into this. It is a very complex idea, and it's a lot to really wrap your head around, especially if you're trying to squeeze every penny out. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of keeping track of numbers, but it's definitely worth it. And the things that don't have homes, it seems to me like when they do, if you've done enough of this, you're going to be extremely grateful that you did, because of all of the extra things, because you're getting the spiritual parts from the summoning, okay, and that's just gonna be there. The smooth parts, like I said, jewelry. Your battle staves are gonna give you the staff parts that you're just not gonna use. Plated parts are gonna give you the metallic. And this is a very, very complex system, but it's also very, very straightforward. Use everything you can, be an Indian about it. You know, go and just look up everything that makes money, that you can sell, that is tradable, and then see what you're already getting parts of. And then, like I said, you can use magic short bows to get a few of the parts. Anything that you can get that's going to get you other parts for other things is good. Cantrip it. You know, making the divine charges, making the siphons is going to get you stuff for the mechanized chinchompas. It's just so, it's so perfect, and it feels so good when things like this come together. Here we are. We're getting there. We are getting there. Let me take a sip of some coffee. I have a problem with coffee. A lot of us do. A lot of us have problems with coffee. $480. So this character's done a lot for combat related stuff. He's got all of his curses. He's got I've got affliction. I do not have the other tier 99s. I do want them, but I really only use magic. But I do want them. Yes. 141 million XP, and yeah, I really pretty much only do magic. Haven't done a ton of quests, you can see that. But I've done what I needed to get a lot of the combat stuff. And whenever I can, I do relevant quests, but I just really don't like questing all that much. I don't know what it is about it. I know that there's a lot of people out there that don't do a lot of quests, but I mean 231 is still, I've got a chunk of stuff done. And, you know, I've got quite a bit of experience, 1.6 bill. And that 31.8 million bonus experience is literally just in summoning and herb lore. There's something around here somewhere too. I don't remember what. Okay, yeah, there's 1100 right there. Woo, that'll get me somewhere. And I'm really close to 101 strength. It almost makes me want to just, you know, put something stupid on and go get 200,000 experience in it, but no, that's not going to happen. I'm going to keep getting no experience while doing magic. None. 0 experience while doing magic stuff unless I'm doing Slayer. I can't even get weapons upgraded and siphoned. I mean, it's a cool feeling, but it also does kind of suck, because watching a lot of that experience go away, I mean, this is only 23,000. Excuse me, 23,000 so far. But you guys saw the mechanized chinchompas, how much experience that stuff was. Just going down the tube. Granted, I was getting, I think it was smithing Like here I'm getting divination, but you see, not much. And even though that was a decent chunk of smithing, it still doesn't compare. I don't remember how much it was giving me, but you can go back and look, because it was right there. Right there. So much experience. I really do think that the divination skill has a lot of design room left. Not like invention, but divination still definitely has a lot that they can do to it. This is going to be 600. Definitely. Okay, so it's like 2.5 minutes and almost 3 for every 60. So. Yeah, I need blights, but I don't do ranged. I mean, I do. I do ranged. But I end up getting gear for it when I get the itch to do something with ranged. Let's see. Like I said, I like thieving a lot. I do not like dungeoneering. I literally put every single lamp I get, every ancient effigy lamp that I get goes into dungeoneering. I don't know why I don't like dungeoneering. I know also a lot of people don't like dungeoneering, but that's a good way to, because literally every single lamp I get goes into those. Just like every single star I get goes here. I'm done putting experience into that. That's going to be plenty for me for what I want to do. But I do need more summoning. I'd like to crack the 200 million mark next DXP in a 24-hour period. 200 million experience. That would be absolute craziness. And get my name on that list and see how long it stays there. That'd be pretty awesome. I cannot make another attempt at it. In fact, if I were to have not done this, I could get it even faster. I could save up a bunch of abyssal whips or something, all level 9, and just disassemble tons of them, tons and tons and tons, and then also do the archaeology and restore tons and tons and tons of items. And then that would be all I really have to do. I could literally do it with those. But adding that on there too, I could, oh man, I could get 400 million. That would be so great. But I can't, because that's 200 million already. So that's just not going to happen. And this attempt will make it to where archaeology will be almost 200 million, which means that will not be able to happen. So they should like keep track of experience anyways. Like, you gained X amount this day, even if it didn't get applied to anything because you're 200 million, just so that, you know, you can kind of see what has been, what you would have gotten. That would be pretty cool. That would be really, really cool. So like 178 seconds. We're definitely getting down now. Starting to squirrel this out. A lot of stuff going out of it. Still looks pretty full because, like I said, there's a lot of things that don't have homes. And I'm still going to be doing stuff with these three. These three things will still make me money. All three of those. And then of course I still have 317 living components, but that's whatever. That is whatever. I cannot wait for the next double experience weekend because I'm going to try and pop that whole thing off. Because if I can crack 200 million, I'm going to be an extremely happy Nox. Extremely. So it is taking just a hair bit longer than I really thought it was going to. I thought that I would be effectively done at 110, an hour and 10 minutes. But looks like I got about 200 more of these to go, so 60, 120, 180, so about 10 more minutes. About 10 more minutes. See, you don't go and make all this stuff so often that, you know, you're just instinctively able to quote the time that it's going to take. Because I'm not 100% sure. Don't do it all that often, because I wait until there's a whole mess of the stuff to use. The whole mess of it. I don't like making little groups of it. A lot of times you'll find me having to do up simple parts. Just make up a bunch of divine charges because I've run out of room. And I don't want to be losing simple parts because that's just stupid. So I'll make up a bunch of divine charges and sell them. And get more stuff to throw in. At that point, that stuff's gonna be free. And I've gotten 4 enhancing components on the last one, so very possibly, no matter which one of them was going to be running short, if it was only running 4 short, or 3 short, respectively, it was going to give me an extra one. It's cool. I ended up making 2,000 augmenters at one point when they were still like 600,000 a piece. That was the largest group of augmenters I'd ever made. I didn't make anything else when I did that because I was using all of the other stuff that I was making to fuel that. So every time that I made some mechanized Chinchampas, which mind you I was not able to come up with plated parts like I can now back then, so I wasn't making a holy ton of them. But all of the simple parts were getting used to fuel it, all of the precious and, you know, so all of the equipment siphons, all of the charges, all of the junk refiners, all of the augmentation dissolvers, all of them were going into it. They were making it to where that was literally possible, because 2,000 augmenters was a lot of stuff. It was 16,000 enhancing components and 14,000 powerful, and it required me to have a bunch of base parts saved up, not disassembled, so that I could do them real quick. It was great. It was absolutely great. Not one of the craziest things I've done, but I tend to like to do things in RuneScape fashion and have a whole ton of something, and I've never been privy enough to be recording anything like this and trying to get into that kind of stuff. I find great attraction to it, and I think that I do some things that people will like seeing. I'm sure that some people are going to watch this because it's a lot of stuff that I'm making. Some people will watch it because I talk pretty comprehensively about the rest of this, and others may even listen because I have some interesting perspectives on how the game's going to progress. So, I mean, any way it goes, we're at 700 of these, so I'm almost done with this video. We're gonna get that up there where I've used all of these. So yeah, there's just over 100 more, because this will be 7. So 223 is like 20. There's like 130 left. Almost 130 left. And then I'm going to call it good. We will probably go and look into the bank real quick and show you a little bit of a stockpile of stuff that I've got waiting for that DXP weekend coming up. Happens to be June 12th right now, 2022. Almost June 13th. But we are... Oh, I gotta hit this one again. For another 60. Why did it do that? It kind of lagged on me, and then... Are you gonna do it again? Huh. Come on. Don't do this. Alright, well, I got logged out. That sucks. So we're gonna continue this now and finish this off. But right before I get done, we're gonna go look at the bank. And I'm gonna show you what I got stored up at this exact moment for the next double experience weekend. But that's in about 100 and a couple more augmenters. It's also going to be looking at how much I just put together in effectively an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes. Yep. I can't do that and not think about Ducky. Probably just dated myself, but a little bit older for someone playing RuneScape. It is what it is. Pretty spry for my age, if I may say so myself. I love how massive this game is. I love that it's got a breathing economy. Living, breathing economy. Love that it has so many ways that you can play this game. There's, you know, besides just adding the hardcore Iron Man or the old school RuneScape, there's different ways that you can really build a character if you just want to build one quickly. All the pures and such as that. And I guess that's more towards the old school RuneScape now. But there's just so much to do. You can play this game for 10 years and never finish it all, or you can play it for 2 and get every bit of it done. Doesn't matter. There's so much content. You can have no life and do it quick, or you can just keep doing it for a decade, or 15 years in my case. Such a phenomenal game. Coming up on the last one that we're gonna be doing, so the last few minutes of this. Almost got it done. That was quite a bit. Be going over almost an hour and a half, over an hour, push an hour and a half. If anybody actually stays here to the end of the video, I really appreciate it, and I'd love to hear from you. If you see me in-game, or you want to message me on my channel, by all means. I'd love to get some dialogue going, and like I said, I'd like to be making a clan fairly soon, if it's at all possible. Need to get the founders together, need to find people who think that there may be some other way to make a name in this game, to show 55, to play it differently, to treat it like the MMORPG that it really is. Not a big open world where we can all come do our own things next to each other. That just seems kinda outdated. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just too lost in the clouds sometimes. God knows I get accused of that. But even if that's true, I could still be right, and there could be some untapped potential of this game. One that's only discovered when people start looking with the right perspective, desiring to be open to new possibilities. Like I said, new avenues in which we can pursue this game. I mean, let's take bloodweed for example. It's crazy expensive. Not hard to grow. What if a whole clan of like 200 people were to all keep doing it, all keep them going? Could you affect the market? after a little while of just concerted effort in the same general directions, could change an entire clan's fortune, create a new structure. That would be great. I would not... I dream of things like that. Not necessarily just in RuneScape, but just I dream of much more cooperation for us as humans than we typically get to experience ever. You know, we're all unique. We're all experiencing this perspective that we feel like nobody else understands, thinking that no one's ever going to get it. Kind of think they all already do. Kind of think that eventually we're going to figure all this out. But that's a whole different crazy side of me. That right there is the end of the creation part of this. And I just want to show you this. Pretty set up for some stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. 800, not almost 900. Okay, but still. Absolutely crazy. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to... Whoops. Why do I keep hitting the wrong button? Okay. So we're going to add the augmenters. Mech chins. 484 million in effectively an hour and a half. That's kind of cool. And that's not including the 25 million that I can get from the junk refiners, which would take it to like 514, and then the 60 from the divine charges, which would take it to like 570. So awesome. Thanks for joining me. I'm Noxious Wrath, and have a great day.